See if you can relate to this. You're going along in your relationship, everything is fine, and then you say something pretty innocent. Maybe even you're trying to be a little bit funny. Well, at least you. And suddenly, like a dormant volcano erupting, she explodes. Expletives are flying, accusations are being hurled, and you find yourself like a deer caught in the headlights. You're doing the DEER. What's DEER? What is DEER? It's defend, explain, excuse, rationalize. It's the four fear-based behaviors which every nice guy tends to do almost on a daily basis. Welcome to the Nice Guy Show. I'm your host, Chuck Chapman, and I'm joined with my co-host, Faisal Koker, and Ari Graf. The three of us are coaches, and we're dedicated to helping nice guys because we're recovering nice guys ourselves. Together, we have decades of experience helping men level up. Our mission is to help men develop confidence and skills to get the love and the success that they desire. And today, we're going to talk about the dreaded feminine freakout. This has happened to me, and it's probably happened to you because it's happened to most men that I know. For example, I had a client who was recently telling me a story about how his wife had come to him with a question. She wanted to know what he thought about something, and he made this rookie mistake. He thought she actually wanted to know what he thought about it. And so, thinking he was being helpful, he told her what he thought. And instead of getting thank you and love and I appreciate you, he got the full frontal attack of not being supportive, how he really didn't listen to her, and that he was only available and thinking about himself. She called him a narcissist, claimed he was gaslighting her, and he had no idea what to do because he had no idea what he had done. He didn't know what he had done wrong. He was taken back. He didn't realize that this was a test, not for more information, but to see if he could handle her. So today we're going to talk about the feminine freakout, and we're going to talk about how you can bring your partner to calm, because I think it's one of those skills that nice guys often lack in, of how do we bring our partner when they're upset? How do we bring them back down to a place where we can actually have a conversation and talk to them and get some resolution about whatever's going on? So, Faisal, have you ever experienced the feminine freakout?
It just happened to so it was this weekend. So
Perfect.
it was actually it was on point actually, and I'd have to say this weekend was a real learning curve for me as well, and an experiment as well. So my ex-wife was here spending time with my younger son and my older son, and my older son suffers from OCD. So he has really bad OCD, and it's far better than it used to be. Now he freaks out when, say, there is something from the past or something about where he used to live, if that any kind of like contamination comes into the new house. So where my ex-wife lives, anything that when she comes and visits, his OCD requires her to wash some clothes or wash herself or something like that. And she made a mistake and she left a bag near him. And he went into complete freak out mode. And I know we're talking about the feminine freak out, but his feminine was freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what happened was that his mum went into the deer response, the defending excuses, explaining stuff and rationalizing. So I was the observing party, and I noticed them, escalating, and it's getting tense and tense and tense. And I stepped in. And I realized that, I said to my ex, here right now, he's having a real bad OCD attack. Now, here's what I suggest you do. I said, look, just stay cool, just stay calm, and don't interact with him. I said, you've got your emotional brain kicking off with his emotional brain, and you've got these two emotional brains, and you're trying to rationalize here. You're trying to explain yourself here. You're trying to engage logically with emotions here. It's never going to work. It's like picking up water with your fingers. It's not going to work. So I said, don't engage. just listen, do not engage. And she found that really difficult because she wanted to, say something, explain something, or, she wanted to come back with something. I said, it won't work. It will not register in his logical brain. Let him just calm down. And I said, look, just follow the instruction very briefly and don't engage when you're doing it. Because he was in such a hyper a place that anything you said to him wouldn't work. It wouldn't register with him. And I can tell that she was really not used to this. And I'm not used to this either. So I just, moments later, we just followed the instruction that we needed to do, not engage with him. And what I noticed was that the whole situation de-escalated very quickly. Before it would take hours and you're wrong, and there just would have been all this argument for nothing. And by just saying, don't engage with the emotional brain, with logic, stay quiet and let that digest, metabolize, worked out an incredible quick de-escalation and resolution.
Beautiful. You bring up an excellent point about like the feminine and the masculine are not gender specific, like in this case, your son and your ex-wife, and your son is in the feminine, the freaking out, sort of the shadow side of the feminine, and your ex-wife's sort of in the shadow side of the masculine, which is trying to explain and trying to, control the situation, trying to dominate, those kind of things. So it's a really great story about how masculine and feminine energies show up in us. Like I've had the feminine freak out, like I've freaked out before and have felt that in myself. And my wife has been in her masculine in times, when we're having discussions. So it's not just gender specific, but it is an energetic kind of thing that happens. What about you, Ari? Have you ever experienced something along these lines?
Never.
Thought so.
No, what came to mind actually was also involving my ex-wife. So, guys, if you're married, if you're divorced, it doesn't mean it's over in terms of feminine freakouts. At least if you have kids with them. So I may have mentioned that I'm doing Taekwondo with my son, and I just joined him a few months ago. So this is the special thing that we're doing together. We're bonding, we're practicing together. It's been a great learning experience for both of us. We had our first belt testing because we're at the same belt. So this was back in February, I think. And my son was supposed to come to my belt testing, which was the adult one. And it was after school. And I was so excited to have him there, to have a family member there, but especially him, he's doing this with me. So, and I talked to my ex-wife that he's going to come with me. It was a day that she was supposed to have him. And then I'm literally on the way to pick him up to take him to the belt testing with me. And then she went into a freak out. And mind you, this was over text. She says, no, he's not coming. He's had a long day and he's tired. Do you know what time you're going to get home? It's going to be past dinner time. And I'm like, you know what? It's just, okay, it's a school night, but this is like a special thing for us. And we already talked about him coming with me. And he's going to support me. He's going to see his dad, testing. Like, but she was so angry with me, and she called me a narcissist. She called me selfish. And all I'm doing is taking him with me to this belt testing. So there was no reasoning with her. I was trying to, again, explain to her. I didn't feel like I needed to excuse my behavior. I didn't feel like I was being a narcissist. Like, it's just, I wouldn't throw that term around so loosely. And I was pissed off. I was really pissed off. and she was doing this right literally a half an hour before we were supposed to get there. And I was nervous about doing the testing myself, so I felt like she was throwing me off, but that wasn't in her head. So um, I just I decided I wasn't going to keep arguing with her. I insisted that he go, and she relented, and I took him, and I just didn't argue with her more. And I think that was the best way to handle it. I had to soothe myself because I was upset, which is not how you want to go into a martial arts belt testing, is feeling upset and attacked. Um, but I just had to let it go. So that's something I'm doing differently now than I would have a few years ago. I can calm myself. I can be okay with tension with her or a partner. Um, so I felt good about how I handled it. And we didn't talk about it that much further later. I think she just had to calm down. She hasn't made that accusation towards me again.
Bringing up a great point, Arya, that um, the self-soothing piece is such an important part, and I think it's one of those things as nice guys we really didn't develop at a young age, and so it's something that we've had to learn even as adults and in our nice guy recovery. I don't know if you guys remember this, but so the three of us are our founding coaches in Integration Nation with Dr. Glover, and he had a chat with us. We have a little chat system, and he said, "What I've taught couples for many years is all it takes is for one member of the system to find a way to soothe themselves in order to shift the direction of the entire system. Calm is contagious." And I think that that's the thing that we kind of have to remember when the chaos is going around us, that if we can stay calm, and I've used this metaphor before, but the lighthouse where we're just solid and we're allowing the calm to, our internal world to be calm, and let the storm sort of pass through, that when we do that, typically what happens is that feminine energy starts to settle down and soothe as well. And I think this is even from a biological standpoint. We have the mirror neurons. If you see somebody do something, you're automatically engaged kind of in a mirror kind of thing. So if they're excited, you're going to be excited. If they're angry, you're going to be angry. Um, and if we can recognize that this is just a biological trigger, and then if we can override that and just be calm, and a lot of that starts with the self-soothing, whether it's breathing or just relaxing your thoughts, those kind of things. So great point, Ari. I was thinking about a similar kind of situation that happened to me. This was several years back, and I had, I live in Portland, and Dr. Glover does TPI weekends up in Seattle occasionally, and so this was a time when I was up in the weekend helping him, assisting him, and it was over, and I was driving home. It's about a 3-hour drive. Call my wife, and she's upset about some information that she thought that I should have told her about. And it had to do with the discussion I had with my ex. It was really innocuous, but she just felt like she should have been privy to the information. So she was upset. What she was thinking was like I was withholding information, or maybe there was something going on, or just sort of like secret communication between me and my ex. So she was upset. And then, she hung up. And now I had this 3-hour drive to ruminate about, what I was going to get when I got home. So I started doing some self-soothing, some self-coaching, because I think this is another thing that we can do, is ask ourselves questions about what's going on. And that can be really helpful. Just like you were doing, Faisal, with your ex. You were explaining and helping her kind of see, you were coaching her essentially into creating calm in herself. So I was doing something similar to myself, and so I'm going through, I'm thinking, okay, she's upset with me. And then I said, Chuck, who's responsible for your happiness? And I went, I am. And so then who's responsible for her happiness? And I went, she is. Okay. So if you're upset, Chuck, who's responsible to get you unupset? And I said, I guess I am. And so I guess the same applies to her as well, that she's responsible to get herself unupset. I don't have to be responsible for her emotions. I don't have to be responsible for trying to make her feel better. That's up to her. So then I asked myself the question. I said, Chuck, when you get home, do you think she'll still be upset? And I went, possibly. I said, what about tomorrow? Do you think she'll be upset tomorrow? Probably not. Maybe a little, but probably not. What about the next day? No, certainly by the next day, she's going to be completely over it. All right. Worst case scenario, all you have to do is wait 48 hours and things are going to be back to normal. So you don't actually have to do anything but soothe yourself and give her space. Now, if I feel like I've done something that's incorrect, or I can try to make an amends, but it was really helpful for me in just kind of stepping away from this idea of like, I have to make other people happy, or I have to take responsibility for other people's emotions. What do you guys have in terms of like, what are your go-tos in these kind of situations now, in terms of like self-soothing or bringing yourself into more calm?
So with the deaf model, I love the deaf model. I have my own model, which is you got the DARE model. The deaf model is my model inspired by Dr. Glover, which is defend, excuse, attack, or fawn. And I catch myself doing either of those things, especially before, because my anxiety, my nervous fracture, or my nervous system is really high, and I find myself, behaving in that way. So I see guys doing this, especially when they go on dating as well. They end up over talking, over explaining, and that was one of my problems. It still is something that I'm working on, especially more now. So, is using what Dr. Glover gave me, and he says, use the 2-sentence rule. Now, when it comes to parenting, this is where I really struggle, because, when the kids are not doing what I want them to do, there I am trying to use so much logic, explain over, here's why you should do it. And what I notice is that they end up becoming deaf to what I'm talking about. They can't hear me anymore. And what I noticed was, by keeping my cool, just saying what I need to say and then moving on, gave them a space to reflect on what I said and be heard and be more respected. What I'm doing now is I've started to make sure that I do my box breathing every day, my double inhales, which is to help me manage my own anxiety. And like you said, Chuck, soothe myself. And another thing is make sure that I get plenty of good early sleep. That's when I notice that, a lot of my nervousness comes out when I had really bad, looking after myself poorly. So good breath work, good sleep, looking after myself really helps me to stay calmer in the situation and use the 2-sentence rule.
Yeah, we're throwing out a lot of acronyms today, so I'll throw another one out there, which is HALT, which is hungry, angry, tired, lonely, right? HALT. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Haddle.
dyslexic, so HADL. My dyslexia is kicking in. HALT, so when you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, tired is a good one. And I think, getting enough sleep is a huge one. Getting enough sleep, taking care of yourself, taking care of your body so that you don't flip into the fight or flight too soon. How about you, Ari? Do you have any tips for our listeners about what they can do to create calm in their life?
Ari seems
Especially
too
in
cool and calm,
I
doesn't he? He
know
just,
it's hard to
I
see him
can't,
kind of like flying off the handle. I mean,
yeah, I can't see him just raising his tone and, like being mad, like, don't do that. That's all I can see him saying that.
It's always the quiet ones who have the biggest temper. Yeah.
right?
So I actually I can lose it, but I only lose it with special people.
They have to really deserve that.
Right. Um, Yeah, I mean, I think it's some of the things we've already been talking about. I think I won't go in. I won't get into a long back and forth with someone. You know, I will just end it, kind of like I did with my ex, because it's just so exhausting. I mean, I think that's part of what happens with nice guys is they get into these extended conversations with a partner about what they did wrong. And yeah, you're trying to endlessly explain or excuse, and it's just fruitless. So yeah, I will take a break. Um, I'll I just won't engage. Um, I'll go work out. I'll take a walk. Um, I'll talk to a friend. So those are probably some of my go-to things. I don't have a special acronym. I'm feeling I'm feeling
Let your
Feeling
team
inadequate
left
right
out.
down.
now.
You have
Um,
to come up with an acronym for left out.
Chuck, what about yours? What are
Yeah.
your go-tos for, bringing the situation, handling the feminine freak?
Yeah. I love what Ari was saying, just to not engage. Like if I'm really, really flooded like that, um, I will, I will can sense that in myself and generally will say, listen, I have to take a time out. I need to leave. Um, it also doesn't always go over very well because, the other person is flooded and they want to continue the conversation. They want to continue the argument. Um, but I think it's really important to be able to say like, okay, this isn't going anywhere. Like we're both too emotionally flooded at this point. Let's take a break. And taking a break doesn't mean that you're not going to finish the conversation. It just means you're going to come back after you've had a chance to kind of calm down. And so I think that that's a really good way to do that as well. It's all part of setting boundaries. It's all part of like setting boundaries with yourself and others to say, what do I tolerate? What won't I tolerate? And to create those healthy boundaries in that system. And oftentimes, the best way to set boundaries is when you're not in a flooded state, when things are calm and you have I often will refer to sort of the State of the Union address where you have a conscious conversation with your partner and you talk about the relationship and you talk about, okay, sort of going forward, we just had this fight. Let's talk about that and how can we do that differently? And it's during those times to be able to say, look, if I'm feeling flooded like that, I'm going to take a time out. And that doesn't mean I'm abandoning you. That simply means that I'm stepping away to take care of myself. So I think that that's probably one of the, a really good way to do that. But the point is that we're responsible for our own feelings. So if we're freaking out or if we're in the face of a freak out, we're the ones responsible for our own feelings. And so if you freak out yourself, the only thing that's going to happen is you're going to escalate that into a big ball of argument and chaos and hurt. And you're going to say things and do things that you later regret. Well, guys, I appreciate you and your conversation today. Thanks, everybody, for taking time to watch our show. Please, if you're watching this on YouTube, remember to like, subscribe. This really helps us reach out to other men who need support. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, make sure to subscribe there as well. Go to niceguyshow.com to get on the mailing list. And if you like this podcast, check out the one we did, episode 24, on the unattractive truth about nice guys with mommy issues. And we'll see you next time.
You've been listening to The Nice Guy Show with certified nice guy recovery coaches Ari Graff, Chuck Chapman, and Faisal Kokar. Be sure to subscribe to this channel so you can listen to our latest episodes and visit us on www.theniceguyShow.com. If you have any topics you'd like to hear us discuss, send us an email at support@theniceguyshow.com. Thanks for listening.